It's been a scorching weekend in the Sunshine State at Sebring International Raceway for round 3 of the 2025 Toyota GR Cup North America. The first race of the weekend was dominated by Weston Workman, who scored an emotional victory yesterday for BSI Racing. The field requalified for the second race of the weekend this morning with nearly 24 drivers vying for space at the top of the scoring pylon. Hi everybody, Kyle Heyer joined by Ryan Marine, Jonathan Grace down on the pit lane. It has been a hot one here this weekend, Ryan, and the action yesterday was scorching as well, but an 8.5 second gap for Workman claiming his first ever victory.
Yeah, behind Weston, it was fierce, as you would expect, but that was a dominant performance for Weston Workman. What a way to win your first race after coming so close so many times to stamp it with authority. That was a remarkable result, and what an emotional interview post-race as well.
Yeah, I joked yesterday that it was probably harder for him to keep the tears down than it was for him to win the race yesterday, but an emotional victory there, but plenty of drivers that would like to steal it back today. Jackson Bell in trail, of course. John Dean as well for Copeland Motorsports were in the mix. So was Lucas Weisenberg, who finished second yesterday. Lucas didn't have the greatest qualifying effort this morning. He'll start down in 7th place, so some work to do, but I love when we reshuffle the deck with the second qualifying and kind of sort the cards out in a different order. Makes that second race a lot of fun.
And it was unbelievably close. The top 4 were covered by a 1/10 of a second. 1/10 from 1st to 4th. 3rd and 4th were covered by 1/1000th of a second, Kyle. Which I say as if I'm surprised, which is really, that's my fault. I shouldn't be. This is par for the course in Toyota GR Cup. Such a close competition. That's the calling card of the championship, which is what made Weston Workman's domination yesterday so surprising.
Yeah, certainly, and Weston Workman came into the weekend second in the standings, only 2 points behind Jackson Bell, so it's still very challenging for these drivers to establish themselves as a favorite when there's so much competition at the front of the field. Young Ethan Tovo with brother Jackson Tovo last night took a dip in the pool to cool off. It was kind of fun to chat with them, and Ford Koch and Lucas Weisenberg all going to bed early to get prepped for today.
Only after you serenaded them with your 6-string, though.
That was a lot of fun.
Kyle was performing here this weekend, not just on these broadcasts. Very talented in many facets are Kyle Heyer. Did want to give an update, though, on Jackson Bell. His dad, Townsend, took a moment to check in with us in between qualifying coverage duties at Indianapolis to let us know Jackson had a toe link issue yesterday, getting up on the curb and in that battle with Weston Workman early, and that they think is part of the reason he faded. They're pretty confident, though, that he'll have a chance to go for a big result today.
Well, engines are going to get fired here for the second race of the weekend here for round 3 of Toyota GR Cup North America. 22 cars getting fired up. It wasn't just the 7 that had some suspension issues. Ford Koch also told me that he hopes to make some changes, some compression and rebound adjustments to his JRI shocks today to find some more compliance around this very rough 3.7-mile circuit. This place has been a racetrack since 1950, an airfield before that.
Exactly. Hendricks Army Airfield trained B-17 pilots from 1941 to 1946. This facility was identified by aeronautical engineer Alec Ullman, for whom the Ullman Strait is named, as a potential site. He wanted to bring endurance-style racing, Le Mans-style racing to the United States and thought this might be a place for it. And I think the intervening 75 years have proven him right.
I think so. And, just joking in the Twitch stream this weekend over on twitch.tv/SRO Motorsports, people were saying, oh, it looks so bumpy, they should repave it. And everyone said, absolutely not. This is all the character that drivers love.
No, I always tell people who say that, you must be new here.
Exactly.
The bumps are what make Sebring such a special place.
Well, with the 22 field of drivers here, so many young talents in the field and experience as well. John Dean will roll off 4th place, and that number 16 was up in the mix yesterday. But let's have a look at the starting lineup for Toyota GR Cup North America Race 2 from Sebring. Front row, yesterday's winner, Weston Workman, just over Ethan Goulart from Tech Sport Racing. And then it's Jackson Bell in row 2 alongside his teammate John Dean in the number 16 car. Row 3 is Ethan Ayers in the number 78 alongside Spike Kolbecker in the RVA Graphics Motorsports car, with Lucas Weisenberg and Brett Kowalski sharing row number 4. Will Robusto starts in 9th place in the number 2 for RVA Graphics. Max Schweid graduated high school yesterday, had the gown and the cap with him here at the racetrack, and skipped the graduation to be here. Ethan Tovo and Jensen Sofronis on row number 6, with Jackson Tovo and Aiden Kirk sharing row number 7. In row 8, it's 15th place. Christian Weir in the Tech Sport number 71. Ford Koch rolls off 16th in his number 21 from Copeland Motorsports. Zach Hollingshead for PT Autosport and Carl Foreman are in row number 9 in the 88 and 03, with Massimo Sinceri for BSI Racing in 19th, Farron Davis for RBA Graphics Motorsports in 20th, and Beltray Curtis and Peyton Fayen sharing the final row in Copeland cars and Nitro Motorsports cars, respectively. So warming up the Continental tires and getting ready for action today. We've seen at Sebring in the past, Ryan, that one driver seems to jump out ahead of the field while everyone scraps for what's left over. But is there impetus for the drivers in trail to kind of play and work together to keep someone like Weston Workman in their crosshairs?
Seems like a pretty good idea based on what we saw yesterday. That is easier said than done sometimes, trying to orchestrate that cooperation, especially across team lines. If you've got a couple of teammates lined up, all right, maybe there's a way you could communicate that and make it all work. But difficult indeed when everyone has one goal in mind, and that's to win this race.
Absolutely. So lights are out on the Toyota GR86 safety car. We're single file now. We'll be doubling up shortly. And again, we saw a pretty clean race yesterday, just a couple slips and slides there. But Ryan, we've seen in the past that, you know, like some other races that you might see in Florida, there's usually one that's nice and clean and tidy, and usually another where there's a bit more hip and shoulder, let's say. So we'll hope every driver can load their car back on the trailer the way that it arrived here at Sebring, but it's rough and tumble out there.
It certainly can be. We saw a pretty clean race yesterday, as you alluded to. I'd love to see another one, and I've got faith. There's a lot of talent in this grid. Really, the only thing counting against them is just how close the competition is. Some contact is inevitable, but hopefully they can keep it green, keep it pointed in the right direction.
Great opportunity for Ethan Goulart in that 72 in his first season as a full season effort now alongside Weston Workman. They're going to come up to the start-finish line and into the acceleration zone for a 45-minute race here in Toyota GR Cup North America. Round 3 from Sebring, race 6 of the season. Nice orderly columns here, waiting for the green flag to fly. There it goes, and we're underway at Sebring. A great launch there by Weston Workman and Ethan Goulart. I don't know that he'll be able to stay alongside. A little hip check there in the background by Ethan Ayers, popping over to the left to defend from Lucas Weisenberg, but side by side, Jackson Bell takes second place into turn 1.
That's a big move from Jackson to get up there from the second row of the grid, and now he's already putting some pressure on the race leader. This is a repeat of what we saw at the beginning of the race yesterday. Side-by-side fight further back as third place changes hands.
Yeah, Ethan Goulart's dropping back. This was not a very good start for him, but on the wrong side of the road into turn 1. Just get the train moving in the right direction. Side-by-side through 5, jumping over the curbs there on exit. Goulart goes for a wild ride over the dirt.
Oh, that looked rough. And as if the pavement here isn't rough enough. It's pretty bumpy off track as well. And problems here for Peyton Fayen. Not sure what happened, but that car is off track and at the moment non-moving.
Yeah, didn't get drive out of turn 1. The car never really accelerated up through the gears after that opening corner. A little bit more side-by-side into turn 7. Some dust kicked up here as Lucas Weisenberg trying to grab some spots. Didn't qualify as high as he would have liked. He told me he wanted to put it on pole and drive away from Workman because their pace was so well matched yesterday.
It's true. He had a really good drive. I think we called him out a couple of times for the fact that he's doing this for the little family-run team up against some of the behemoths of the sport, but great pace, and now he's got the right attitude, trying to charge forward here, making up for lost time.
Now, already we're seeing the two cars at the nose of the field, Workman and Bell, get some gap on John Dean, Ethan Goulart, and now Ethan Ayers and Lucas Weisenberg, who cannot afford to spend any more time side by side if they want to keep pace with those front two.
Yeah, this is where it becomes difficult to cooperate. I think we just lost a mirror off of the 5th place car of Weisenberg there. That happens a lot. We saw that yesterday. When they're side by side, it's inevitable. So I think these guys are pretty used to not having the mirrors from time to time. What a slide that was. Ethan Ayers, great catch, but it's left him a little bit vulnerable here. He's got a car to his inside.
That's what Robusto, they tagged each other there a bit when he came back. On course, more contact on the back straightaway. They keep it straight somehow, but the hip and shoulder we talked about early on here at Sebring.
Guys, we really enjoyed the green flag racing yesterday. Let's have more of it here today, all right? Let's cooperate a bit. Great getaway by Workman. Bell, though, is right there with him. Dean under pressure as we go full course yellow. Might have to do with Peyton Fayen's stopped car. It does not look like it has made it even through the first sector.
Yeah, and of course, full course yellow is out, and we saw a little bit of jostling there. And of course, you can't pass under yellow, so they'll have to reorganize that or face penalty here. So race control will give them an opportunity to sort it out. But, yeah, I think you're right about Peyton Fayen, and there she is at the exit of turn 1. It's such a heartbreak for a young driver for the Nitro Motorsports team trying to establish herself in this field. and looks like some kind of mechanical issue pausing her race for the day. We did not get a full course yellow yesterday, and this honestly helps John Dean, Ethan Goulart, Lucas Weisenberg reset, because Workman and Bell were about ready to take flight here at the airport, so to speak, and drive away from the field.
Yeah, spot on. That helps, I would say, Weisenberg in particular, who has to come from further back in the pack than he'd like. He's made some progress now. We get the reset and a chance on a restart to maybe grab a couple of more positions. For Workman, this is a new position for him here this weekend. He led the bulk of the race yesterday, really was untroubled. Now he's going to have to deal with a very hungry Jackson Bell behind him on this restart. But you know what they say, right? Sometimes that first win can open the floodgates, and you get the sense that there was so much gratification, but also a sense of purpose, I suppose, yesterday with that win. It was the message that, hey, I can do this. I know I can do it. I've proven I can, and I wonder if we might see the best of Weston Workman now that he's got that breakthrough win.
He left no doubts yesterday with an 8.5-second advantage, and you said that the only fluke was that it didn't happen earlier.
Right.
So he's been very, very fast. 15 podiums, 10 second places leading up to that. Was a championship contender last year, but you need to be able to win races. The 7-point spread from first to second really makes wins a powerful addition to your championship. And we've seen the last couple of years, the drivers that win the title are just the drivers that win the most races. It's as simple as that.
Yes. Now, those two titles have been dominated by individual drivers. This seems to be a more wide open field here this year, and I'm not sure anyone's going to run off the amount of wins that we've seen from Gresham Wagner or Tyler Gonzalez in the first 2 years of this championship, which makes the individual wins, I would suggest, all the more important. It's a rare chance, if it is indeed more equally spread across the field this year, to score those maximum points and to make big gains on your opposition that it's hard to do anywhere else. You pretty much have to get that win to get that big advantage, 25 points versus 18.
Yeah, the wins are powerful, but consistency will help you. Of course, Jackson Bell, I know he won a race at Circuit of the Americas, but was leading the points with only one win. Lucas Weisenberg had two, one at Sonoma, one at COTA, but almost didn't score points in race 2 at COTA and didn't score points in race 2 at Sonoma. So Sundays have been tough for Lucas, and that's why he wasn't leading the standing. So yeah, you can win all the races you want, but if you're DNFing or not finishing the other races, it's going to be hard to parlay yourself to a championship. But I also want to point out Max Schweid. We talked about him briefly in the gridding, graduating high school yesterday, and we've seen this a couple of times in the SRO paddock here at Sebring because of when it lands in the year, drivers skipping their graduations to participate in racing. And I think as a racer myself in some ways, or a racing fan, I can understand how this is where you want to be.
Yes, I think I would make that same call. I had a chance to intern at the Indy 500 on the day of my graduation, and my parents made me go to my graduation.
Oh, no fun.
No. No, I'm still a little grumpy about that.
Well, Max Schweid isn't grumpy. He's 8th and climbing up the order. Lights are out on the GR86 safety car. That means we're going green next time by. So when this safety car pulls off, can begin accelerating right out of turn 17, but can't pass until the green flag is displayed from the standings. But we're back underway, back under power, 230 horsepower unleashed from these GR86s. There's the green flag, and waving down the front straightaway. Workman knows how important this moment is.
Really good getaway from Weston, able to build a gap, broke the toe. In fact, I think Jackson Bell was more concerned about playing defense. John Dean looked pretty threatening there, moved further back in the pack. That's Robusto to the inside of Schweid as they go side by side through turn 1.
Yeah, and Spike Kohlbecker in that yellow car in trail looking for a way around. Switched teams this year. Hasn't really had the pace that he had last season, but continues to be a force inside the top 10. Schweid takes a shortcut at turn 4.
And I've been forced out there a little bit, hip and shoulder. Tight quarters racing, as is customary in Toyota GR Cup. Cost that group, that whole train, some momentum. That's allowed this first group to separate itself and break off. So I think maybe about the top 6 or 7 now running a bit ahead of the rest of the pack.
Yeah, Lucas Weisenberg's up a couple of spots, was side by side there with the 72 of Goulart into turn 7. And with this reset, it stopped the bleeding for Goulart because he went backwards very quickly on the initial green flag. So a good chance to reset. Maybe some nerves there starting on that front row, but Goulart is usually calm, cool, and collected. Talked to him this morning or last night in the hotel, and he was just ready to show the performance and pace that he's had all season.
Comes from a racing family. His father, Elevon, a TC champion in what's now the SRO paddock back in the World Challenge days. He's a multi-time SCCA runoffs national champion in some really competitive classes like Spec Miata and F500 over the years. So he's been around this game for a long time, and like so many sons of racers, just waiting for his chance to get to do it himself.
A little bit more weaving through Bishop Bend here. Fast left-hander, easily flat out in these cars. Set of 6-speed sequentially, go down to about third gear here. You can straddle the curbing here, help the car rotate. You see Workman, a little sideways slide there on those Continental tires as they get set up for this long run down through the Le Mans turn and up to Sunset Bend.
You've seen more of these races than I have, Kyle, but my impression is you can drive these cars sideways and still extract speed.
Yeah, you certainly can. They'll get a little angry with you if you slide the rears too much, but they respond very well to very aggressive driving as long as you can keep the thing pointed the right direction at the end of the day.
Now, this is plenty aggressive, too. All that weaving to break the toe. Can get a little bit hairy. Jackson Bell does seem to have some pace in hand today. Remember, they felt like they had some suspension issues going over the bumps, over the curbs early in the race yesterday that maybe cost them some ultimate pace. Jackson's on it right now, although so is John Dean doing a tremendous job in the third position.
Yeah, this is excessive weaving, I would say. But again, as long as you're not reacting reacting to the car behind, it's not considered a block, and we're far away from the braking zone. So race control won't look too closely at that, but I bet you they're not thrilled about all the moving we're going left and right on the back straightaway here, trying to break that draft.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm not sure it's necessarily being done defensively in terms of trying to block or anything like that, but it has that effect sometimes, and how you rule on that, it's complicated. It's difficult. I'm glad I'm not in that position.
Yeah, certainly up in the steward's office. They do hard work up there, but look at this. Lucas Weisenberg defending from, I think that's Ethan Ayers in the 78 in trail, now breaking into turn 7. And this is a brand new chassis for the 78 after some contact and collision back at Sonoma Raceway. The car was just never quite straight again at COTA, so they opted for a new chassis. And Ayers giving it a nice run here. Came into the weekend P13 in the championship standings.
Just did the best first sector this lap. The car in front of him, Weisenberg, set the best lap of the race the last time by. So those are two cars to keep an eye on. They're on the move, right on the fringes of the top 5 here with 30 minutes to go.
You know, I think the restart being single file has allowed everyone to stay tighter together because it didn't create those side-by-side fights where you lose so much time. That's not what Workman wanted to see, though, because he's got 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars right in trail that I think can keep pace with him now, at least on lap time.
I'd agree with that for sure. Workman, though, starting to build a little bit of a gap, 4/10 of a second at last check over Jackson Bell, who's certainly able to hang with him. And then Dean bringing so much experience. You told the story yesterday about the family connection to this track. His dad, the longtime PA announcer here at Sebring. He knows this place so well. And this is a racetrack where local knowledge means more than your average run-of-the-mill circuit.
The pavement hasn't changed in 80 years. You're going to learn some tips and tricks of it over the years of running here. And again, many years the senior of a lot of the drivers in the field is John Dean. But Jackson Bell closing in turn 17 once again. You can take a bunch of different lines through here. Workman, big counter steer correction over the bumps at that 17th corner, and Jackson Bell looking to take advantage of it on the front straight.
Quick hands, great save by Weston Workman. We saw that on display some yesterday too. He does feel vulnerable here. Look how defensive he is down the front straightaway, forcing Jackson Bell to try the outside line. Jackson brings a lot of speed into the equation. He had a little counter steer moment there too that cost him momentum, and now it's John Dean on the attack.
Yeah, don't spend too much time here side by side though. That'll give Workman all the time he needs to drive away. Door to door for the Copeland Motorsports teammates. I think Dean's going to tuck in behind Smart there, but already 3 or 4 car lengths. It does not take much to lose time to someone who's all by themselves.
Best lap of the race to Jackson Bell the last time through. That's what allowed him to erase the deficit and get to the bumper of Weston Workman, who had to guard that inside line into turn 1. It left him vulnerable, but Bell couldn't quite make it work around the outside.
It's challenging to do that. These cars have some downforce, but not a ton. Goulart up the inside of John Dean. Opportunistic move there. If he could get that pass done, sends Dean through the dirt, and now single file on the run up through Fangio.
That wasn't overly charitable, was it?
No. And now Lucas Weisenberg will take the opportunity to sneak up the inside here. So they just pounce on you here. Just get you out of the groove and get freight trained, a little more contact. That mirror was already broken anyway.
No quarter asked nor given in Toyota GR Cup. Dean from the attacker now forced on the defense. He's got Weisenberg challenging for the 4th spot overall. Weisenberg to the inside. That's the blue car to the inside of the black and orange machine. Those traditional Copeland colors for John Dean. Does a great job rolling speed on that outside line, and actually he's able to hang on to this spot, and he's bringing Ethan Ayers with him.
Yeah, it's so challenging. You saw Lucas Weisenberg on offense there, then had to get on defense, and now loses another spot. So, you don't complete one pass, you're going to lose maybe another one. But the battle continues here through turn 15 and 16. So we worked our way through Le Mans again. So Weisenberg off the reset. Here's a look last time through turn number 7. Spin for Jensen Sifronis off of Beltray Curtis there at turn 7. So a little contact in the left front of Jensen's car. Pretty well tore up as well.
Yeah, you're right. Looked like Curtis had to take evasive action off track 2. Sinceri there in that mix. Difficult weekend for young Jensen Sifronis. Yesterday didn't go his way either.
That's great pace in that 41. Young driver, 14 years old. Son of James Sifronis, who's found so much success and has been in the SRO paddock for many decades and continuing a racing legacy. But again, he's got so much pace, just has to harness it, because I think that car and that driver are capable of top 5s. A little bit of more battling in the background there. That's Will Robusto defending from Brett Kowalski for Tech Sport Racing. Max Schweid is back there as well. Schweid P9 and has 8th and 7th there. Robusto dirt tracking it again. They might as well run these cars with off-road tires here like they've got on the Tundra or Tacoma at this point.
That seems sensible. They're using as much of that dirt right there, almost by design it seemed like that side. Robusto up and over the curb, kicking up the dirt. Didn't slow him down any.
At Circuit of the Americas, we talked about track limits the entire race. Don't have to worry so much about that here as far as advantage gained, but man, they are really pushing the limits of the pavement that's offered to you here at Sebring. 25 minutes to go. Robusto, Kowalski, Schweid on defense here. Spike Kohlbecker trying to get around Christian Weir in the 71. Tech Sport versus RVA Graphics back here just outside the top 10.
At the front, Workman's building a gap. He took the fastest lap of the race back from Jackson Bell on the last lap at a 2:25.5. No one else has done better than a 2:25.7. So he has some pace in hand over the rest of the field, and that car seemingly got stronger relative to the competition as the race went on yesterday.
It did. Maybe it's Workman taking better care of his tires. Of course, he was sliding around a lot earlier, but once he gets settled in and doesn't have that pressure, he seems to do quite well. Robusto firing one up the inside of Schweid. Schweid took it at turn 10 and loses it at 13.
Fantastic move there by Robusto. That's 8th and 9th, changing hands. Kowalski, his next target in the gray machine just up the road. Orange nose there for Robusto. Schweid doesn't have any time to sit and think about it because he immediately comes under pressure. Christian Weir, the next in line to take a shot at him.
Yeah, and Ethan Tovo in that Dayglow yellow and white car is in trail, and Ford Koch as well in the 21. So again, this is sort of turning into a classic Toyota GR Cup North America race where you have little pockets of action throughout the field. You don't see these big draft packs that you might see in other one-make series. These cars are pretty slippery in the air, and they've got enough power that you can drive away from a pack, but you tend to see little couplets, quartets, and things of the sort generate over the course of this race.
It's a good mix, I agree. Having the power, but not too much power, right? You're still teaching momentum driving at this early level of the Toyota Motorsport ladder, but it does reward you for driving well, and it punishes you for making mistakes. You can lose ground, and you can't just rely on the draft to bring you back into the mix.
These cars do have traction control. Usually it's off, and that's fun to watch these drivers slide these cars around. Little wiggle there for Kowalski at the exit at turn 1. He takes his Continental tires right through the dirt, and Robusto fires one up the inside on offense here.
Yeah, Will's been excellent here in the last 5 minutes or so. We saw him make that pass a few moments ago on Schweid. Just got another move made, and Schweid will follow him through. Kowalski suddenly dropping back. He's off track a little bit there, kicking up some more dust. That will leave him vulnerable as Christian Weir starts to close in.
A teammate there in the 71, but Christian Weir has been aggressive here this season. So he pops out of line in the braking zone down into turn 7. And he's going to go opt for driver's left down here, which is usually a tough pass because of how tight that corner is here.
Yep, and that leaves you vulnerable then to Kohlbecker. Coming up the inside, the two who have probably sparred together in single-seaters, I suspect, over the years. They're doing so again, this time in 10 tops. It's still a side-by-side battle. This is for the final spot inside the top 10, making its way down to turn 10.
Locked horns like antelopes there leaving turn 7. They just got hooked together, almost turned each other around. But you see the damage on the left side of the 71. He's had the elbows out this weekend. As we continue now to turn 13 here, Kohlbecker and Weir. Kohlbecker in the Vanguard Engines car up a position. Bright yellow car, easy to spot here in the field, but Ethan Tovo and in the background there, Ford Koch lined up trying to run that group down. Through Bishop Bend now, and again, Wesson Workman establishing that 1.2 second advantage, but this is the battle a little bit deeper in the top 10, 7th, 8th, 9th, and off track there for Max Schweid.
Yes, wild ride up and over those curbs there, but held it well, continues on. Schweid right now shown running in 8th. Kowalski, who has dropped a couple of spots here as of late, sits right behind.
I think it's indicative of the competition level in this series that we've seen passing be a challenge here this weekend. This is probably the racetrack, maybe Coda, you could argue, has the most passing opportunities of probably any track on the calendar. And we've seen drivers really struggle to not only complete passes, but just to get an opportunity to take them because everyone's so equal at the front of the field. Although Wesson Workman, again, establishing a lead that I don't know if it's going to come back down. He's just been so solid here this weekend. It's
the nature of single-make racing to some extent. When you look at the GT4 level or GT3, the cars will have different strengths and weaknesses. The lap times, thanks to BOP, are remarkably close, but they make them in different ways, and it's that overlap, strong in one place, weak in another, that helps to facilitate some overtaking. When everyone has the same package to work with, it takes some mistakes oftentimes to be able to make some of those passes, but again, such an important training ground, knowing that your competitor has the same equipment at their disposal. They're fighting with the same weapon that you are.
Ethan Goulart in the 72, trying to work his way around Jackson Bell. And further afield, Ethan Ayers and Lucas Weisenberg scrapping for 5th place. Ayers has had some contact with the right side of that GR86 and is dragging the side skirt, and he's also lost the cover of that right side wing mirror. Again, with these cars being exactly the same, when they come together, you tend to knock mirrors first.
And we've seen that on display a few times, mirrors going flying. I guess at this stage, right, they're pretty used to not using those side view mirrors. Sometimes I've heard it said in touring car racing, the mirrors are there to tell you how close you are to the wall as Goulart takes a peek to the inside. I think that truism holds true here in this series as well. Great move there. Jackson Bell stuck on the outside and loses that second position.
So we'll see if Goulart now can do anything about the advantage Workman has. Now that he's dispatched Jackson Bell. Yesterday, Lucas Weisenberg took the position from Bell a little too late to do much about it. But we've still got just under half the race remaining. So if he's got pace on Workman, now is the time to show it because he might need all 20 minutes to run that leader down.
Yeah, we're about to find out. Really curious to see what kind of pace Goulart has in that car. Did a great job in qualifying, of course, to put that car in the first couple of rows. Dropped back, though, at the start. So actually, this has been a good recovery drive for young Ethan. Not getting down on himself after losing a few spots there at the initial start of the race and keeping his head down, driving forward.
Yeah, the restart absolutely helped.
Yep.
Giving him an opportunity to sort of reset. He started on driver's right, which is challenging here at Sebring because the first few corners are all left-handers, and the funnel into turn 3 really puts you on the wrong side of the road. Actually, really, turn 5 is the only opportunity that you kind of have to establish alongside for the first real right-hander on the course. But into turn 1, Goulart still has Jackson Bell in tow. That little scrap that they had cost them a second. We'll see if they've got time to reel him back in. Weisenberg has been working over Ayers, but hasn't made much of a dent in that 78 just yet.
Great job by Ethan Ayers keeping Weisenberg in check. We know how fast that car is. It was on display yesterday. Down in 6th after a disappointing qualifying earlier in the day. But Ayers deserves some credit for keeping Lucas behind him. Not an easy task.
And really carrying the flag for Nitro Motorsports here this weekend at the pointy end of the field. 5th place yesterday and 5th place today so far. Pretty orderly here from 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And just keeping our eyes on the lap times. Sector 1 times for Ethan Goulart, just a 10th off of Wesson Workman, so doesn't need to find a lot to reel him in. If it's only a 10th or 2 a lap, I think Goulart can really settle in, line up those crosshairs on that Endava car out front and go make a run for it.
Jackson Bell's presence, though, makes that a little more difficult. You can't just focus in on chasing down Workman for the lead of the race. Some thought has to be given to the car behind. Jackson Bell has looked really strong in this race at various times, and even after being passed, He's not dropping off the pace at all. He is right there, and I think has designs on getting that position right back.
Yeah, he's a pretty savvy driver, though, and I think, we've said a couple of times this season that if you're not running down the leader and they're extending the gap on you, maybe it's wise to swap the locomotives out and see which one can pull the train back up to Workman. But if that doesn't work in a couple of minutes' time, then, yeah, go for it.
Middle sector, Workman with a big advantage, half a second over Goulart. That's amazing. Half a second, not in a lap, but in a sector.
That's a great advantage. And Sector 2 has some of the trickier parts of the racetrack, like Cunningham up through Tower Turn, where you're sort of on rails there. It's like a roller coaster. You end up kind of splitting the difference between the curbs on left and right there. And getting exits out of the corners are so critical there. And he's been so solid through that part of the racetrack. Through turn 17, bouncing over the bumps, getting sorted and set. See what the lap time looks like for Weston Workman across the stripe. 2:25.5, still running qualifying pace laps 20 minutes into this race.
Yeah, Goulart and Bell, high 225s or low 226s, so half a second or more in hand for Weston Workman, and you have to wonder if he's even showing his full strength at this stage. My thought is you'd probably want to preserve those Continental tires just a bit in case there were to be a yellow and a reset to make sure you have something to fight with in the event of a late race restart.
It's a fair point. Now, there was a slight, I say very slight, gain in Sector 3 for the trailing cars, but not anything close to making up for the loss they had in Sector 2. I'm talking hundredths versus the tenths that they lost. But
yeah, 55 hundredths to be precise.
not a ton.
No, this race needs to be 16 hours, not 16 minutes, for that to be the difference maker.
Yeah, again, these drivers are going to be the faces in sports car racing here in North America in a couple of years, I think. We've already seen that with the previous two champions of this series. And Jackson Bell, of course, I'm sure lining himself up for a long career in motorsports with the success that he's had. Weston Workman doing the same across multiple one-make championships and making his mark yesterday. I think the same is true with drivers like Ford Koch that have designs on moving up into some GT racing in the future. But, like as far as the Toyota GR Cup Series, the strength of the paddock has only increased in the third year of operation here. And I think really showing that it's driver versus driver with all the cars being of spec.
I agree. It's such a good proving ground for these young drivers that have so much talent but are light on experience, certainly in cars. Many of them have done karting since they were really little kids, but it's a new challenge to be racing in a full-bodied race car like this, which is why I actually think it's really important to have drivers like John Dean, who is significantly older, double the age in some cases or more so than some of those that he's racing with, but brings that experience, and this gives them something to compare to, a measuring stick. You know he's experienced, you know he's fast, and if you can run with John and learn a little bit from his racecraft, that will prepare you just that little bit more for whatever the next step might be.
A lot of these drivers are still in school in some way or another. We mentioned Max Schweid graduating yesterday, but they go to school as soon as every session is over. They're back at the transporter looking at data and trying to figure out, where am I losing time? And I spoke with Lucas Weisenberg at COTA, circling sectors. Where is he losing time relative to other cars? And by Saturday's race time, Lucas was right on it. So learning from other drivers around them and making the whole field stronger.
Ethan Tovo has had a problem on this lap. He's dropped about 5 spots and just now has come across the start-finish line. Not sure what the cause of that would have been, but he was running, 13th, 14th, and now he's shown at 19th.
Yeah, so it could have been...
Actually, wasn't even across the start-finish line, just the middle sector that he is tripped.
Trying to see where that would have lost, and it was Sector 3, so
yeah.
I'm going to make an educated guess and say maybe turn 16 might have had an issue there, but again, that's a shame for Ethan Tovo. He's had similar pace to brother Jackson, but hasn't had the luck kind of fall his way yet this season.
You need that racing luck, don't you? That's been proven time and time again. Battle here for second place is on once again as Jackson Bell, tired of waiting in line, sizing up Ethan Goulart and made the move to the outside. Goulart, though, able to cover him off, and now here comes John Dean once again. How aggressive will he be with his teammate, though?
Well, I think they've all given up on running Workman down. This is where they just sort of say, all right, we're going to race for the best of the rest. And Goulart's got it. Bell wants it. John Dean and Ethan Ayres right in the mix there. Throw Lucas Weisenberg here. So it'll be a 5-horse race for second place. That'll be fun to watch.
No question. It was yesterday, too. Weston Workman will be loving this, watching it in the rearview mirror. Interesting. We've seen John Dean all weekend take that different approach, the shallow approach there to, that was Tower, right? Turn 13. And I wonder if that isn't some of his local track knowledge that he's putting on display. It might not be, your traditional approach to that corner, but if you could straight line that braking zone and still get the car rotated, it is a shorter approach. Plus, you're filling the mirrors of the car you're chasing.
That was the point I was going to bring up, too. Yeah, you straight line the braking zone, a little easier for the ABS to sort things out, but with these drivers ahead, if you can fill their rear view mirrors and make them check one more time before they turn in, it's just the tiniest distraction. The drivers won't tell you that is, but when you get off to the corner and you have to check the mirror again to make sure that they're not firing up the inside, that little split second can make the difference between you hitting the apex and not.
Absolutely. Little things make big differences when the field is this tight. Goulart slips a little bit wide there through Sunset. Bell looked like he got a pretty decent run. That car seems comfortable running that tighter radius through the final corner, but that wider radius, the wider arc, allows Goulart to open the wheel up and get the power down. He carried enough speed out of the corner not to be under too much pressure here into one.
Yeah, I think the gloves are going to come off here pretty shortly with under 12 minutes to go. So two little battles formulating, one for second and then one for seventh, with Robusto leading Schweid and Kowalski. Maybe a little front to rear contact there, just a knock on the door for Jackson Bell on the back of Ethan Goulart.
Jackson just letting Ethan know he's there, in case Ethan wasn't aware already.
Well, the mirror's full, so he can't miss the blue and orange, that's for sure.
He still has his mirrors, which is something.
Yeah, it's certainly doing better than some of the other cars in the field, but I don't know that we can guarantee that they'll exist for the next 11 minutes with how aggressive things have been.
Wouldn't bet on it.
No, I wouldn't either. Ethan Ayres takes a poke out on John Dean. The other thing, as far as experience goes, for a driver like John Dean, when they go off into these braking zones, you don't necessarily see John Dean going defensive. He seems to have a very good understanding of when a driver actually has an opportunity to make a pass, and if they don't, stay on the racing line. Don't shorten up your arc because you're afraid that someone might go up the inside. If you know they aren't going to, stay on the racing line like you see here into Cunningham.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Great feel from John, whether or not he's truly under duress, and if not, don't compromise your entry to the corner. That can then cost you all the way through the corner and onto the next straightaway. This is what we were talking about on that last lap, the more shallow approach there, the straight line braking rather than letting the car flow out all the way to the left-hand side. Seems to be working just fine for him.
Yeah, the other thing is it reduces his vulnerability into tower turn. That's an easy spot to sneak up the inside if someone's caught sleeping. So if you stay further driver's right, there's not less of an opportunity for someone to jam the car up the inside and try to muscle by.
It's a really good point. Sends that message to the car behind. It's not going to happen here. This is another area where occasionally you'll see some desperate lunges made, but it's risky business trying to make the pass through Bishop down through Lamont, turns 14 through 16.
Yeah, big risk, big reward down there, because if you fail to make that pass, it'll slow you down for what feels like a mile of racetrack, and in a car that you need to carry that momentum, that is crucial.
Yeah, I've run this track before, and let me tell you, that Ullman Straight feels like it's never going to end.
Got enough time to make a cup of tea and read a book on the way down there.
Definitely.
But 9 minutes and 30 seconds to go, and we're still just heating things up for second place. Ethan Goulart, I think this would be his best result of the season if he could hang on. Of course, Goulart comes into this event 7th in the standings, scored a 4th place in race 2 at Sonoma, and a 5th place back at Circuit of the Americas. This would be his best result if he could hang on to it.
If he can, that's a big if. Jackson Bell again looking threatening. Very nearly got his nose to the inside in turn 1. Had to settle back in. Right there in the tire tracks, in the slipstream of Ethan Goulart. Purple and white machine, 2nd place, all of this 5.8 seconds behind the race leader, Weston Workman. Goulart, though, little twitch there. Here comes Jackson Bell on the run down to the hairpin.
Jackson dragging the right side tires in the dirt, trying to see if he can sneak up the inside. Goulart will give him nothing to the outside in the braking zone. Bell late on the brakes, using that Bosch ABS. Can he go around the outside? It's tough math out there.
Yeah, couldn't quite pull it off, but that was pretty close. Meanwhile, here comes Weisenberg. He and Ayres now duking it out side by side for 5th and 6th. He was able to make that long line around the outside work, at least to draw even, but now the track comes back the way of Ayres. Little hip and shoulder there. Ayres not ready to give up that spot.
Yeah, if he can stay driver's left here, can't quite do it, but the left-hander here, if you can stay alongside, you can usually complete the pass there, but was unable to do so, and now they're losing touch with 2nd through 4th, so they've got to get this sorted out if they want to have eyes on a podium.
Easier said than done.
man, they're just using every inch of racetrack there. There was the opening season of Toyota GR Cup. It was a couple of years ago now, 2023, at the exit of turn 16. There was a driver that went all the way to the edge of the road, and there was a big divot on the outside of the curb. They put the Continental halfway in the air over the edge of the curb, just using every inch of road that they could before they fell off the cliff that was the edge of the racetrack.
There are quite a few divots around the backside of some of these curbs, and they're only getting bigger as the weekend has progressed.
Right there, same thing. Ethan Harris just did it as well. That Continental half on the racetrack, half floating above Sebring soil on this back straightaway. Sweeping, dragging the field left and right again, just trying to break this draft. I don't know how effective it is, but certainly they think it's doing something.
Has to be worth a little bit, you would think.
I think maybe just the idea that it's working might be enough for these drivers at this stage, because you just don't, you want to feel like you've done everything you can, right? And so you're going to pull every trick out of the sleeve that you have available to you, whether it's moving left and right down the straightaway or doing those fake dives that we've seen John Dean do at times with all the experience he has. But right now, nose to tail through turn 1 with 6.5 minutes to go.
This is the part of the track that Jackson Bell looks to have an edge over Ethan Goulart. He closes in here and was able to get fully alongside in the brake zone into 7 on the last lap. It's the closest he's been since he dropped back to 3rd. Sizing up the youngster. Well, both of them are pretty young, actually. John Dean, the veteran of this trio, keeping tabs on it from 4th place on the road.
While we watch these drivers fight for second, Wesley Workman again ran a mid-225. He has been incredibly consistent over the duration of this race to a level I've never seen. I don't think. I have to see the lap chart. I don't think he's been anywhere out of the 225s since this race began, save for the safety car laps.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Really consistent stuff. He's dropped off maybe 0.4 of a second from his best lap of the race. That's to be expected in these hot conditions and at this circuit in particular. But yeah, he's been bang on the money, especially while these guys have been stuck fighting with one another. That's up to build a big advantage. Spin there for the 31.
It's Jackson Tovo and Aiden Kirk down at turn 7. That was a big kerplunk into the braking zone, and this could end this race if they don't get rolling. It looks like Aiden Kirk has got left front damage. That car is going to have trouble getting back around. Jackson Tovo is refired, but boy, they came together in a big way down there.
Sure did. This is the old turn 7. The old hairpin that was reprofiled a few decades ago. A little extra runoff there and a chance to get the 31 of Tovo back on the track. But I agree, I think it was the other car that appeared to have some significant suspension damage, and they'll be hard-pressed to try and get it to a safety cutout.
Here's a look at it. Aiden Kirk, the red car in trail. You see, move from Zach Hollingshead, then Kirk just goes way late, just missed the braking point entirely and clobbered Jackson Tovo there. And I'm not sure if that jerk to the right, his foot slipped off the pedal or something of the sort there, Ryan, but just did not look like he got to the brakes in time, and that car is going no further.
Hate to see it for Aiden. Great job by Hollingshead to avoid all of that somehow. That could have taken out all 3 of them, but he's able to continue on, runs 13th.
Wesley Workman getting after it through turn 1. He is not slowing down, still just ran a mid-225 lap time, nearly a full second quicker than the second place battle. There will be, for now, a local yellow at turn 7 covering that corner with Aiden Kirk off to the right. That means no passing down there. Ethan Ayers goes for a ride in the dirt.
And that incident under review. Lucky there for Ayers that Weisenberg wasn't there to take advantage of that off-track moment. Lucas had fallen back a bit and is having trouble keeping pace, it would appear, with this quartet, headed up by Goulart.
Yeah, curious to see now, with only 4 minutes to go, we'll be coming back to 2 laps left, if race control will let us race this one out with that car pretty safely off to the right. But down into 7, the curious thing is what the corner station is doing down here. This is one of your best passing opportunities at the racetrack, and there is a yellow flag covering it, so no passing down here, which is going to be a restriction in these closing moments of this race if we do stay green.
It's a really good point. That from that corner station to the next that does not display a yellow flag, passing is prohibited. Just have to proceed with some degree of caution. But that does take away probably the best passing opportunity, and certainly for Jackson Bell, who has probably been stronger over the last 4 or 5 laps than Ethan Goulart in the first half of the lap at least. That's really where it all was kind of building towards. If he was going to make a move, it seemingly was going to happen there. And to take that arrow out of the quiver, so to speak, is a big setback, I would suspect, for Jackson Bell.
Yeah, and the highest pressure battle right now is actually for fourth. John Dean feeling increased pressure from the Nitro Motorsports 78 of Ethan Ayers. And Lucas Weisenberg licking his lips here because if these two get side by side, that's a couple of positions that he could pick up as well.
I think that's what Lucas needs. He's dropped off the pace a little bit, running low 226s. Actually, it's not that far off of what the others have done, but he has lost a little bit of ground.
Whoa.
That won't help him.
Well, he picked up a little ground there, ground in the form of Sebring soil.
Well played.
He'll have to dig it out from the side skirts after this race. On to turn 17 now. A little bit of weaving there, but Goulart's put some distance between himself and Bell.
Should see the white flag this time by for Weston Workman. They're running 225s. We're well below that on the time remaining. So one last lap, 3.7 miles to settle this fight for second, third, fourth, and fifth. Weston Workman seemingly has this race under control.
Very similar gap to yesterday, I must add as well. So he's been consistent and fast, and he's had the luck go his way this weekend as well. So all those things are lining up for just a brilliant weekend for the BSI racing driver. And like we said yesterday, breaking the curse that he might not only, it took him 3 seasons to get his first victory. It'll be less than 24 hours for his second. I think that's not so bad.
Open up the floodgates, quite possibly, for Weston Workman. He's been so close so many times. Got that breakthrough yesterday, and the validation that he must feel, the catharsis as well. Just remarkable, the amount of emotions that came out in that victory lane interview yesterday.
And looking at the championship standings, the top 3, Weston Workman's the only one that scored points in every race so far because of the troubles for Weisenberg at Sonoma and Jackson Bell to boot. So as we talk about championship favorites and establishing a driver that is your, the one that everyone's chasing, Weston Workman is going to leave here the points leader, and by a fair margin now if he can get this job done.
Now he's been near perfect here this weekend. Pole for both races, led nearly every lap yesterday. If this holds, if he can seal the deal, he will have led every lap in race number 2, fastest lap of the race as well. Great performance from Weston.
Ethan Goulart on defense here from Jackson Bell into tower turn. Bell sizing him up on corner exit, throttles down a little sooner. Can he drag race him up to turn 15? This is going to be a fun fight all the way to the checkers between these two.
This is where we talked about it. It's fairly high risk to try and make a pass through this sector, but it can be done. And on the last lap, that's probably when you're willing to take that risk. Jackson Bell sizing up Ethan Goulart. These two have been dueling pretty much the entire race. Goulart has the spot, just a couple more corners to hang on for second place.
Jackson Bell's got one more chance to fire a cannonball at the city walls there. Penalty for the 47, drive through, but that car is not driving anywhere right now. Down the back stretch, weaving for second place. Weston Workman well afield as we head to the final turn here for Toyota GR Cup North America at Sebring. Goulart, I think, is safe from Bell for the time being. John Dean is right there in the mix, trying to steal a podium away. But for Weston Workman, won his first race in several seasons yesterday, picks up a weekend sweep at Sebring in the number 13 for BSI Racing. Last turn for the battle for second. Goulart runs to the finish, gets his best result in Toyota GR Cup. Bell on the podium, Dean 4th, Ayers 5th, Weisenberg 6th.
Fantastic stuff. Really good race there from second down to 5th. Weston Workman in a class of his own here this weekend. Unbelievable what he has done, breaking through in a huge way. Kohlbecker and Weir completing the top 10, and we've got some more battles yet to be decided, Kyle.
Ethan Tovo going after the 0-3. That's Carl Foreman for Precision Racing LA, and a couple other drivers a little further afield. Massimo Sinceri's driven up to 14th place. Nice climb for him, coming up just short of Zach Hollingshead. This is a battle for 13th place, and side by side across the line, Baron Davis almost stealing one from Sinceri. A gap of 48 thousandths of a second there at the end.
Fantastic stuff. That's what it's all about.
Talk about great racing. How about a 48 thousandths gap for 14th at the end of this? They're battling all the way through the field.
Well, that's what you love as a racer, even if you can't go for the win, just to find somebody to fight with. And there's no shortage of those opportunities in this field. That was a really good battle coming down to the final moments.
Well, Weston Workman is going to be pinching himself later and hope that he doesn't wake up tomorrow and find out that we haven't yet gotten to Sebring Raceway, because that was about as perfect as of a weekend as you can get. On pole twice and 2 wins to boot. And now, again, tied for most the season so far. We're still pretty early in the year, but as we head to VIR in July, we start our pivot point to the second half of the season. He will work in there as the championship leader. And I think that will establish him and just build the confidence as well. And I think, we talked about it briefly yesterday, how, you start to wonder after a couple of seasons of competition and being so close so many times, how close are you going to be? How long will it take? But here's a look. Weston Workman gets it done. 7.5 seconds today over Ethan Goulart in second place. Then Jackson Bell and John Dean third and fourth for Copeland Motorsports. Nitro Motorsports in fifth place with Ethan Ayers. Then Lucas Weisenberg in the one-car team for Lucas Racing in sixth. Will Robusto, Max Schweid, seventh and eighth. Spike Kohlbecker and Christian Weir, 9th and 10th for RVA Graphics and Tech Sport. Tech Sport teammate Brett Kowalski finished 11th, with Ford Koch for Copeland Motorsports in 12th. Then PT Autosports' Zach Hollingshead in 13th. Massimo Sinceri climbed from the tail of the field up to 14th place and just beat Farron Davis by a nose across the stripe in 15th place. Carl Foreman, Ethan Tovo, and Jensen Sofronis 16th through 18th. In trouble for Beltray Curtis, Jackson Tovo, Aiden Kirk, and Peyton Fayen. Couple offs, slip slides, some damage, and mechanical issue for Peyton down in 22nd place. Unfortunate end to her weekend here in Central Florida.
Yeah, it was indeed. Didn't really get a chance to do much today. We only made it about a corner into the first lap before those issues arose. Don't see that much in this series. These cars are pretty bulletproof over the years.
They're going to spend some time putting some body work back together on the 47. So let's have a look at the highlights from race 2 for Toyota GR Cup. And race 2 of Toyota GR Cup North America at Sebring International Raceway. Early off for Peyton Fayen with a mechanical issue at turn number 1, but it was Weston Workman on the restart that drove away after the full course yellow. In the 16th corner, it was Weston Workman going for a big slide ahead of Jackson Bell. And the 16 of John Dean right there in the mix. Defensive driving on the front straightaway. This was as close as Jackson Bell got to tasting the lead. Maybe had a nose ahead for a moment, but a slip and slide through turn 1. Fell back to second place. Also left himself vulnerable. Slip for the 41 of Jensen Sofronis at turn 7. Some contact and damage there. Robusto up the inside of Brett Kowalski at turn 3. And sent Kowalski for a ride through the dirt ahead of Max Schweid in the number 98. Down into turn 7, it was Bell alongside Ethan Goulart. This was the battle for second place. The Tech Sport Racing driver slipping with the rear Continentals passed for P2. Jackson Bell tried to get back by, but it was a battle deeper in the field here between Aiden Kirk and Jackson Tovo that came to a head. Contact, crash, left front damage on the 47 car. And the battle for second place all the way back to Weisenberg, who went again off track. But Weston Workman came out of turn 17 a winner once again in Toyota GR Cup North America. Sweeps the weekend, round 3 at Sebring International Raceway before they head off to VIR. And Weston Workman again climbing out of his car, celebrating again the emotional victory yesterday, and now it's going to maybe not feel normal, Ryan, but start to establish a winning pedigree for this PSI 13 car.
It is. I'm very curious to learn how quickly it does become normal, because I suspect this is the first and second wins of many here this year, the way that he's driving at this stage. That trip to VIR coming up next, that's effectively a home race. He's from the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and not too far of a drive to get up to VIR from Charlotte.
Admittedly, VIR is a home track for a lot of drivers in the field, though, so that that home field advantage might not be, as much of an advantage as all would like to think. But that's been a very fun round in the past seasons as well. Hot there down in Virginia. Workman climbs out. Shea Holbrook giving him a hug. Let's head down to Jonathan Grace, who's with our winner, Weston Workman.
I'm down here with our winner for race 2. Also our winner on the weekend. You swept it. Shea coming over and telling you, welcome to being the guy. How does it feel to be the guy this weekend?
It feels amazing. It's just a testament to all the hard work we've been putting in. Myself, the team, and I just can't thank everybody enough. Toyota, Gazoo Racing, Endava, BSI Racing, my parents, everybody who supports me makes this happen. It's not just me. It's a team effort. So I got to thank all those guys. And, it's just, it feels so good to finally put it on the top of the box.
I'm sure it does. We saw the outpour of emotion with that first win yesterday. Is it starting to feel maybe a little bit more normal to have your car pull into victory lane in the first position?
It does, and my old go-kart coach told me once I get the first one, the floodgates will open, so I'm kind of hoping to get used to it now.
Well, I'm sure this is going to be the first of many. How much does this weekend mean to you down the stretch in the championship? Because you're going to leave Sebring with a pretty healthy points lead.
Right, yeah, I think the ultimate goal this year is to win the championship. It feels good to come out of Sebring with a points lead and a marginal gap, so hopefully we can just maintain the gap, stay consistent throughout the season, and finish it off.
Well, congratulations, Weston Workman, getting it done. A perfect weekend for the BSI Racing crew here in Sebring, guys.
Yeah, I think he knows that he belongs up top. So the emotional victory yesterday, seemingly a little bit more composed today with how much success he's found in this championship. And Ryan, I think we're going to see a lot more of Weston Workman at the top of the pylon.
Undoubtedly. He's been able to climb up the ladder, won a couple of shootouts, some scholarships to help his career get going. But this felt like a really pivotal year in his career, coming so close to wins in this series over the years, being in the mix for championships until relatively late in the season. We've had a couple of past champions move on, which left this as an open playing field, and you got the sense that if he could seize it, this could be a real big opportunity to jumpstart the career of Weston Workman.
Yeah, 7.5 second gap, and I don't even know that he could see those cars in the rearview mirror all that closely anyways. But Jackson Bell came into as a points leader, but we'll head to VIR in July for round 4 of Toyota GR Cup North America. Thanks for watching here at Sebring.
Good stuff, man.